So if you've ever waved at a stranger just because they waved at you first, it's very possible that you're driving through a small town just like this one. And today, my next guest is definitely someone that I will be waving at from now on, and that is my new friend, Danielle Krysa.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Danielle is the creator of the Jealous Curator, which is a highly influential contemporary art blog. She's written multiple books, including Creative Block, Collage, and Your Inner Critic's a Big Jerk. She's also done multiple TED Talks, and she's actually gone to speak at Pixar. Danielle has had multiple interview segments on Oprah.com, and she's curated art shows from Washington, D.C., San Francisco, L.A., and Toronto. It is an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here, Danielle.
Yeah.
So again, why don't you just kind of like give me a little bit of your background, kind of where you came from, what things you've done, and how you decided to land here in Summerland.
Well, I lived in a bunch of places when I was little, but our family came to Summerland when I was 7. My dad worked at the Agriculture Canada Research Station, so that's why we came. We came in grade 2. So I grew up here. This was my heart, really. Jumping into the lake and cutting through peach orchards on the way to parties, and so this is where I grew up. And when I left after I graduated, I never thought I'd come back. My parents had already moved away, actually. And back then, you needed to either work in tourism
Yes.
or an orchard or a vineyard or something.
Right.
And so I just never thought I would come back, which kind of broke my heart. I loved it here. So I went off to UVic, and then I moved to Toronto to do more school. Accidentally met the love of my life, and who was from Ontario, and so I hadn't planned to stay there. I planned to go there for school and leave and come back to the West.
Gotcha.
But I met him, stayed for 10 years, worked in advertising and design, and then we moved to Vancouver.
Yep.
My son was born in Vancouver, and then when he was about 5, I started to think, like, I want him to jump off docks into the lake and, cut through the peach orchards. And so when he was 6, when he was in grade 1, we came back.
Okay.
Gone for 22 years, and now we've been back for about 13.
Okay, sweet. And so you went to university for, was it graphic design? What was the actual university that you did? What was that for?
Well, I was growing up here, I was the art kid, I designed the banner behind us when we graduated, when I was on the yearbook committee and all of that stuff. So of course, when, came time to go to university, I went for marine biology.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's quite a turn.
My mom is an artist and my dad was a PhD scientist. And so I was good at both. And I think I just panicked that I was like, we don't go to school for art. I don't know. And so I just thought, I'll be responsible.
Yep.
And I'll go for science.
Sure.
And so I went for marine biology, and I did fine.
Yeah.
But right at the end of my first year, I think I was heading into exams, my dad called and said, what are you doing?
Really?
He said, you have been an artist since you were born.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to switch to fine arts. And I was like, but what about like food and rent?
Right. Yeah.
And he said, and I've quoted this a million times. He said, you know what, do what you love and the money will come. And if it doesn't, you won't care because you'll be happy. And so I switched to fine art.
Cool. That's really neat.
Yeah. But then it went terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. But that we can get to.
Okay, sure. That sounds exciting. Okay, well, before we get into all the nitty gritty, something I like to do with guests is we just kind of a quirky way to get to know you. And so that's it's going to start off with one kind of random question, and then we'll just see where it takes us. Okay. So question is, what do you have for breakfast? What's your breakfast routine?
It is literally the same every day.
Okay.
I have blueberries with granola.
Okay.
Every day.
Okay, so that tells me quite a bit, because there's some people that are like, oh, it's different all the time, or I'm like, I don't know, like I used to do this. Okay, so you're one of these people that's like, I'm very kind of clockwork. I do the same thing. Routine is very important.
Yes.
Okay, are you like an early riser?
Yes.
How early?
Ooh, like 7.
7. Okay, yep. And so you get this granola from where?
I don't know. My husband just started buying it. We used to get, I can't have a lot of things. I can't have sugar. I can't have
Okay.
gluten, blah, blah, blah. So there's this random hazelnut hemp
Okay.
granola. I think it's from IGA. I think
Yep.
it gets it at IGA.
Yep.
And I have half a cup, like, talk about regular. This is embarrassing now. Half a cup
Yep.
with a handful of blueberries and a little bit of oat milk. And that is my thing every day.
Okay, so so you measure out half a cup.
Yeah.
Okay, and so these blueberries, are these frozen blueberries that you just throw it out, or are these fresh, or does it depend on the season?
It depends on the season. So they're frozen ones that I microwave in the winter. And then in the summer, we get them from Blossom Fruit Stand in Trout Creek.
Okay, sweet. Which is just right by my house.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you
And I accidentally sometimes buy their pies as well.
accidentally,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're getting up in the morning, you're having this stuff. Are you always like, I need a hot beverage to go with that, or you're like, no, I usually just drink water and my oat milk, or what's your go-to?
Well, okay, if we're gonna really get into this, I immediately, as my eyes open, I'm making coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my coffee first.
Okay.
Really like to nurse it.
Okay. Is it like the coffee that I made you with the honey in it because you
Yes.
can't have sugar?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a percolated coffee. Is this
French press.
French press?
Yes. And then I have that, and then I like to drink only half the cup,
Okay.
and then I pretend that I'm having a second cup, and I just microwave that one. Because I'm trying to reduce because I could just live on coffee.
Okay. Got it.
And so I'm trying not to have 4 cups a day. I'm trying to have 2 cups a day. But then I have to trick myself and be like, I've only had.
Yeah.
And then so I microwave that. When that hack is done, now it's like 11:30.
Mhm.
That's when I have the granola bowl.
Okay. So you don't have your breakfast till quite a bit later.
Right.
Okay, this is important information. Okay, so this is good. Because like similarly, when I have a coffee, if I take it to work, I'll put it in one of those like cups that it keeps it really, really warm for a good chunk of the day. But I also don't really like drinking that. And I have this old mug that I actually use, and it's from the Hitching Post, which was a really good restaurant in Headley, BC, which unfortunately burnt down a couple of years ago.
Oh.
But I still have this mug, and it's got these 2 like old Western guns on it. So that's my cup. And so similar to you, I pour it out of there. So I have this one there. And then, but I don't want to do the whole thing because like you, I want a second cup. But because that thing keeps it hot, I'm able to get a second cup out of it later on in the day.
I may need to invest in a thermos.
Yeah.
Because microwaved is not great.
That's not great. Do you notice a substantial taste difference?
I do.
Yeah.
But at least I'm pretending to have a second cup of coffee.
It's true.
And I do that again in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the brain can trick you into like being, oh, second cup of coffee.
Yeah,
You have
delicious.
What a treat. Yes, that's good. Okay, so are we dark coffee? Are we light coffee? Like what type of coffee are we talking about?
Well,
Strong?
I'm getting better, but I used to joke that I liked a little coffee with my cream and sugar, Then I stopped cream and I stopped sugar
Mhm.
because I have really bad arthritis, and as an artist you have to have hands that work.
Right.
So but yeah, my coffee's pretty light.
Okay.
I do love a lot of cream.
Yeah.
And now I do my little bit of honey.
Fair enough.
Yeah. My son is 19. He's not a baby anymore.
Mhm.
He drinks black coffee. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
But he is a man. He's a man.
I guess so. But at the same time, I mean, I like black coffee, but I'm also not a coffee snob. Like I like a really good cup of coffee, but I could have like, okay, here's an example. I went camping a couple years ago, me and my brother and this buddy of ours, Justin, down to this waterfall. You got to hike down there and everything. And we always, okay, you bring this. And his job was to bring the coffee maker.
Oh, no.
Okay, so we bring out the coffee, we have the cream, everything and we get down and he's like, guys, I forgot the coffee maker. And then we can't just go get one. We got to go back up, drive, hike out, blah, blah, blah. So what we ended up having to do, he pulls out a sock. It was a clean sock, but we need coffee in the morning. And so we put the grounds in the sock, and then we held it open, and then we poured hot water through that, and it drizzled into this cup. And I have to say, so the first cup, well, not so good. It tasted like detergent.
Sock.
Like,
Oh,
like
yeah,
so
yeah,
it wasn't like
sure.
so that's the nice. It wasn't a sweaty used sock,
Right.
but detergent coffee, not so good. Second day, same sock, unworn, but it already been fantastic.
Wow.
It was great. So I'm not again. I love a good cup of coffee, but a good old cup of sock coffee,
Sure.
can't complain.
Even desperate times,
Yes.
desperate measures, I would have drank the sock coffee.
Yep. Okay, so I guess what I kind of want to go back into is a little bit of so I'm really curious about the TED Talk stuff, and then also like being on Oprah.com and some of those. Like, how did that happen
All of that happened while I've been back living here.
in Summerland?
Yeah.
So this wasn't a Toronto thing when you're back in
Mm-mm.
the big city.
No.
Wow.
So my first book came out right as we moved back here.
Okay.
Um,
Which was called.
that was Creative Block.
Okay.
That was just like such a crazy thing. Like I couldn't even believe, because the publisher approached me and they loved my blog and they liked my voice and they said, "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" And I was like, "What?"
Okay.
I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's on my bucket list, but what are you even talking about?" So they're like, "Well, what next time you're in San Francisco," which I was going to be, they were like, "Why don't you bring a pitch?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, that would be great." And then I Googled how to write a book pitch.
What year was this?
This was 2011.
Okay. Yep.
So Charlie was like 4 or 5.
Mhm.
And so I pitched this book to them. And I remember saying to my husband, like, I don't even care. Like, I can't believe I'm even pitching a book.
Mhm.
Like, it's an honor being nominated.
Right.
Like, I don't even care if it doesn't get picked up. Like, this is bonkers, but I'm doing this while dropping my kid off at,
Crazy.
Yeah, we were still in Steve's when I was pitching. And they bought it. I just brought Charlie home from kindergarten. It was like 3 p.m. I get a call from the editor and she was like, "The board loved it. We're buying it." And I was like, "What?"
No kidding.
So then,
And this is a publishing company in San Francisco.
yeah, Chronicle Books.
Okay.
And so I wrote the book and I published the book and it went out into the world. And one day I got an email from O Magazine. And you know how you get
O Magazine, like Oprah.
Oprah Magazine.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know how you get like, emails from different blah blah. And I was thinking, I don't think I subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
But okay. And I looked and it was a producer. And she was like, "Oh, somebody in the office had your book on their desk and is raving about it.
Right.
Can we interview you for the magazine?" And I was like,
No kidding.
am I getting punked? Like, so now at this point, we're in Summerland. Charlie's now in grade 1 at Trout Creek.
Yeah.
And I'm getting this email from this. And she's like, "Could we do a call?" And I was like, "I gotta go pick up my kid."
Mhm.
But I don't want to say,
Okay.
I'm trying to look like I'm like cool.
Yes, right.
I'm from Brooklyn or something. Yeah. And I was like, I just have another meeting. And then, yes, I would love to hop on a call. Raced down to Trout Creek, got Charlie, got him home, got a snack, and then called the freaking lady from Oprah Magazine. We had such a great conversation that she's like, "This is such a great story. Do you want to come down to LA and shoot a few video segments for Oprah.com?" Yes, I do. And so I did that. And it was just like the book really, it just had so much momentum. And then, I got invited to go to Pixar and talk to their creative team about creative blocks and inner critics. And
Okay, so I've seen this before. Creative blocks.
Mhm.
Give me what is creative blocks?
It's that moment when you are trying to make something and you have nothing. You're just, and you just feel stuck.
Sure.
And anything that you make, if you do try and make anything, you feel like it's terrible.
Mm.
And I was in a creative block for about 20 years after art school and just made nothing. And every time I tried, I would just, rake myself across the coals. And so when Crown Class asked me if I wanted to write a book, I think they thought I would pitch like, here's my, because I was writing a daily blog at the time, and I think they thought I was going to be like, here's my 200 most favorite posts and the art that goes with it.
Sure.
I did pitch that as like a backup, but I said to her, I keep thinking about getting blocked and hearing that little inner critic telling you that you can't do it and that you suck, because I was hearing that.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was writing about all of these artists, these amazing people doing amazing things, and I thought that they're human.
Mm-hmm.
So they must get blocked.
Absolutely.
But somehow they figure their way through it because they're showing in galleries and they're selling and they're doing this. And I was like, I just want to, like, I don't care if this book sells one copy. Just tell me the answers so I can get unblocked and start making again. Which was the whole point in starting the Jealous Curator, was I never thought anyone would read it. It was therapy for me. And then this book ended up being even more therapy for me.
Yeah.
And so it was interviews with 50 artists from around the world, from all walks of life, all different mediums, different kinds of like self-taught to MFAs. I'm Master of Fine Art.
Okay.
So highly educated to, but they all get blocked.
Right.
And when I sent them the Q&A, they wrote back answers saying, oh yeah, every day. Like, or I factor in time to be blocked on a project, or yes, I hear my inner critic every day, but here's how I deal with it.
So probably some really eclectic, different styles and ways of people to break those blocks, as I'm assuming. Or is there a fairly standard way that, like, you teach someone a specific way to do that?
Yeah, it was kind of amazing the patterns that started to come up. I was like, oh my gosh, like they're basically, it's there's no magic to it. It's just showing up.
Okay.
It's just not quitting.
Yep.
Which is what I opted for.
Okay.
So it's basically like one of the people I had on my podcast years ago, Kate Bingham-Burt, she's an artist from Portland.
Okay.
She said, you're going to make a ton of crap.
Okay.
You need, for every 1,000 pieces of crap, there will be one masterpiece in there.
Right.
But you're never going to get to the masterpiece if you don't make the other 999 pieces.
Yeah.
But we're so judgmental and so hard on ourselves that when we're, when you're on crappy piece number 129, you're like, clearly I'm terrible.
Sure.
And if that has been reinforced by a teacher or a family member saying that art is pointless, or a teacher telling you what mine told me right before I graduated as a painting major, quote, you should never paint again. And I said, okay. I quit. Wow. So, yeah, basically, I mean, I've got tips and tricks that I can share, but basically the general consensus is if you are a creative person, you have to look at this as your job, and you need to show up on the good days and the bad days. Like if you work in an office and you're not feeling like dealing with spreadsheets that day, you don't just not go in.
Right.
You have to go in.
Sure.
So it's the same with art or music or dance or acting or whatever. You have to keep showing out.
As an artist, would you say that you have to have thick skin to be able to do that? Because there's obviously there's that element, because like the saying that you said before, like you have 1,000 pieces and maybe one's good, like that's that whole thing we say to our kids or to anybody. You're gonna have 1,000 that say compliments on something, but it's the one negative that you pay the most attention to. But yours is almost the reverse. You have 1,000 crappy paintings, and then the one you're supposed to pay attention to that, because that's where the beauty and the creative and all that stuff is.
Yeah.
So what's that like, as far as, is that something that you have to have thick skin to be able to like process that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I just had a show in Portland, and I loved the work that I made. I felt like it was some of the best work I'd ever made. Nothing sold.
Okay.
It's really hard
Yeah.
to go back to the studio and keep making it when you're like, well, I guess that was an epic fail. But you have to factor in so many things, because everyone at the show loved everything, raved about it. But I am coming away like exactly what you say to your kids. You get all A's and one B, and it's like, why did you get it? But what's that B about?
Yeah.
Same thing. It's like, well, it was rave reviews and this and that, but like nothing sold. And so you can't. It's so difficult, but you can't put those measures on yourself. Like, that's not how you validate it. And I had a eureka moment in the shower, as they often happen, yesterday, where I was thinking, because I've been kind of down on myself that things aren't selling, but nobody's stuff is really selling right now, to be perfectly honest, given the state of the world. But I thought, I have written about literally thousands of people, right, whose work I am obsessed with. Do I own any of it?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean I don't love it. It doesn't mean I don't think it's brilliant. I just can't afford it or whatever right now. So it's like, I can't, why I have to apply that to myself.
Yeah.
So you're constantly doing it. That's what I mean. It's an ever evolving learning process, because you think you've got it. You think you're feeling confident, and then something happens that knocks you a little bit. And, being told you should never paint again knocked me so hard. And I mean, that was after 3 years of a lot of terrible critiques, and really, like, it was not a great experience. It's so easy to go back to that. One little thing happens and you're like, I'm going to quit. And it's like, no, I have books telling other people not to quit.
Yeah.
So I better not quit.
Yeah.
And so, every day I just have to keep getting up and going.
No kidding. That's crazy. Okay. So back to, so we were talking about Pixar and then TED Talks. Was that before or after, or around the same time?
Yeah, they were. I think the TED Talks were after Pixar.
Okay.
Yes, they were,
Yeah.
because they were a few books along.
Yeah. I mean, I guess after you've probably done the blog, had the book, Oprah, Pixar, TED Talk seems like a pretty natural progression.
Yeah, yeah, and I've done two. One was on Vancouver Island, actually.
Okay.
And these things, it's weird because you get nominated for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can pitch, I think, to do one, but in this case, I was nominated by somebody else.
Okay.
Kind of like even doing this podcast.
Right.
Like, it's like word of mouth of like somebody
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, you should talk to so and so."
Yeah.
So that's how the first one happened.
Yeah.
It went really, really well.
Mm.
Got lots of eyes on it, which then is really nice because it leads to, I mean, it's only 18 minutes. Yeah, 18 minutes, no speaker notes. So you have to have it completely memorized. And they have a giant clock that only the speaker can see that is at 18. And the minute you start talking, it starts counting down.
That's intimidating, hey?
So the whole time I'm like, oh my God, 1742.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to like sound like you're just
Yes.
sharing wisdom. But meanwhile, you've memorized it,
Right.
and the clock is counting down. Anyway, so the first one went really well. And then a couple of years ago, I got a message from somebody who follows
Okay.
Jealous Curator, who happened to be on the board for TEDx Nashville, which is one of the biggest TEDx events in U.S.
Okay.
And she was putting people forward, and she said, "Would you be okay if I put your name forward to do this?" And I was like, "Yep."
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I got picked, and I did a talk that was quite funny.
Okay.
And so they put me first.
Wow.
I got there and we're all getting ready. The night before, they were like, "So now you're gonna go first." I was like, "What are you even?" And it was at the Tennessee, like at the Nashville Symphony Hall, this beautiful theater with like tiered seating with like 2,000 people. And they're like, "You're gonna go first." I was like, cool. So I was in the green room with all the other speakers, and I'm getting mic'd up and whatever, and they were all like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not you."
Oh.
Oh, thanks, guys.
How did you feel about that one? Did it go well?
Well, I went out and I brought I'm gonna throw out a name of a regular around Summerland, Jennifer Avery, who I've known my whole life. We played softball together when we were 7. So she came with me as my little emotional support help. She's worked at the high school for years and years. And anyway, so she came with me. She was pumping me up. She's like, "You've got this. You can do this." Like, yeah. And she's been listening to me practice at the airport or whatever. She's like, "You're good. You're good." I walked out, and as soon as I am on a stage, I'm fine.
Okay.
It's the pre
Yeah.
that's terrible. And so I got out there, I'm doing it. It's great. I even had an out-of-body moment where I was like, "Oh my God, I am the aliens." But I'm talking. I'm still doing the talking. I'm like, "I am amazing." And I was like, "Oh, no, focus." Because I knew if I lost where I was done. Anyway, I finished.
Yeah.
Came off stage, and I was like, "Oh my God." And Jen goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did it." I was like, "What?" She's like, "I totally thought you were going to mess up." And I was like, "What? You just
Thanks,
told me.
Jen.
You just told me I got it." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't think you had it at all."
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. So we left immediately and went and got a giant brunch with mimosas because I was like, I got to go.
That must have been a pretty fun and intense experience, though.
It was. And actually, when they asked me to do it, it was supposed to be, the event was March 2020.
Oh.
And so I'd been practicing all winter. And then there was this COVID thing we'd heard about, but like it should be fine, And so now it's March. I think that the event was March 18th or something. And so they're like, "You know what? We're going to push it to May."
Okay. Wow.
And now you look back and you're like,
No.
Anyway, it happened in August of 22.
Okay.
So yeah, I
So you had a bit more time to
I had a little more time to practice.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess with all of this, I probably should have started with this. Explain to me the Jealous Curator. Like, where is the name from? Why that? And why starting the blog? Like, give me, what's the background behind that?
I had been a creative director in advertising for like 15 years at the time. And when my son was born, I quit and decided to stay home with him. And it was kind of this moment where suddenly I wasn't super busy every day and kind of hiding out from wanting to make art. And then being at home with a 2-year-old, they're just so innately curious and they just make stuff. They're not worried if a gallery's going to pick it up. They're not worried if they're going to, get into a grad program.
They're just like, doing a little pudding drawing here, maybe throwing sand on that.
Yeah, Charlie used to use food coloring to color his macaroni noodles.
Wow.
Because he liked to have rainbow macaroni.
Okay.
And so I remember watching it thinking, I used to be that.
Okay. Yeah.
And what am I doing? And so I started, the internet existed, but Instagram wasn't around yet. Pinterest, like none of it was around yet. So I would just Google like New York gallery. And I was just like looking at all these artists and I was seething with jealousy. Mainly, I told myself it was like, well, because this isn't that good and it's selling and this isn't that good, but they're rep by a New York gallery. But really what it was is that I was jealous that they were actually making art.
Okay.
Because I wasn't even doing that. And so my husband couldn't help but notice the rage.
Yeah.
And so we were out for lunch, our first lunch out without Charlie. And he was about 2.5. And Greg said, he's very sweet and gentle. But he said, all this jealousy you're feeling, it is eating you alive. And he said, when you keep jealousy inside, it becomes like poison. And he said, but if you can figure out a way to say it out loud in a positive way, you can turn it into admiration and you can turn all of this on its head. And he's a social media strategist. He was a web strategist at the time. This was 2008 and everyone and their dog had a blog.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you let me set you up a WordPress blog? Just as a way for you to visually capture all the things you love and just write about them in a positive way and see if you can turn this around. I never thought anybody would read this. I was like a mom in the suburbs, like publishing randomly to a WordPress blog, right? And Greg put Google Analytics on it for me because he's a nerd.
Yep.
And so I would check it every day and there would always be 6 views. And it was always my dad, like 3 times, Greg twice, from work, and me posting.
Sure.
And then one day I logged in and there was like 43 views or something. And 20 something of them were from New York. And at the time I didn't know anyone in New York. And suddenly creative director Danielle kicked back in. And there was a schedule. And, I was writing every day because before that I just would write when Charlie napped or whatever. But now I was like, oh my gosh, people are listening. And so I just started writing very consistently every day, one post. They were short. So that people could consume them easily. And and then I got asked to speak at a conference, and at that conference, I met that editor from Chronicle Book, and it kind of snowballed. And I think because I was being so brutally honest, if I thought people were reading, I would have held back, but I just assumed nobody would ever read it and that it was for me. So my tagline was, because of course I worked in branding and design for years, I had to have a logo and a tagline. It was the Jealous Curator, and then my tagline was, damn, I wish I thought of that. Because anytime I found art that I love, I would have that like, oh, it's so simple.
Right.
Like, how could I have not thought of that? And so that was my tagline. And I started getting comments on the blog of me too, me too. And I was like, really? Like, I did not know inner critics was like an actual thing that all humans have. I just thought that was me, telling myself that I suck. And people were like, oh, me too. Or I get stuck all the time. Or, yeah, I wish I'd made that. And I was like, oh my God, suddenly I had my people. And I didn't have my people in art school. So I felt like I felt like I wasn't allowed in this world. And then especially at 20 years old to have a professor who you respect and who you're supposed to listen to. He's the grown-up in the room telling you, you can't do this. I believed him. And so it took 20 something years to undo all of that. And Jealous Curator was kind of my medicine that let me do that. And I don't write the blog anymore. It's still sitting there, but I switched to Substack. And so now I write on Substack, and so people can subscribe to it. Because I started noticing, like with Instagram and stuff, nobody was coming to the blog. So the people that want to come can pay $5 a month. And people that don't want to can just follow me on Instagram, and there's stuff there too. But it's been, in this coming February, it'd be 17 years so I've been doing this.
Wow.
It's just crazy. And I'm working on book number 8 right now. It's actually due in 3 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing.
What is it like to be in a small town when you are, you're talking with artists and all these different people from New York, from San Francisco, and you're here in this small town? Like you said before, it's kind of like when they first called, you're like, oh, I've got another business call, but I'm actually going to pick up my kid. What's that like to juggle those two different, not lifestyles necessarily, but different perspectives?
Well, at the beginning, I was very embarrassed by it.
Okay.
When I started Jealous Curator, we were in Steveston, which is like a suburb of Vancouver. So it's kind of like a little town. Because at heart, I am a small town girl. So even when I lived in big cities, I would like find the smallest place to live. And I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want anyone, for the first 2 or 3 years of Jealous Curator, I didn't have my name on there. I didn't have my photo. Didn't have my location. People thought I was a man in London for the longest time. And I was like, okay. Like, I just was like, sure. Because I was like, oh, no one's going to take me seriously. They know I'm a mom in a small suburb. Then we moved here. And I kind of still kept it pretty quiet. But then I also turned 40.
Yep.
So you get into your 40s and you're like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I am who I am and I'm proud of who I am. And so that kind of happened at the same time as moving back to Summerland.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, people started to realize where I was. My name was up there more. The name was on the books. You know, I was getting interviewed. Like, I did an interview on NPR and all these different things. So, and I'm so proud of my town. Like, I grew up here. I purposely came back here because I love it so much.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm proud and telling people that I live here, I love the balance because something about it, I always joke that I'm like, is it the minerals in the clay cliffs here or what? But there's just something here that makes me calm. But I get the beauty of both worlds because I get to like pop out to New York and do some crazy stuff. And my book was at the MoMA gallery, and you know, like they're in their gift shop, and you get to go and do that and see all these things. But then you come home and you go to Blossom Fruit Stand and you buy a pie and you pick your kid up from school, and nobody here, most people have no idea what my job is. Most people think I'm, quote, Charlie's mom.
Yeah.
People don't even know my first name.
Sure.
I'm just Charlie's mom.
Yeah.
Your wife taught Charlie.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm usually just Charlie's mom, which I love. I don't need to be anything else while I'm here.
Yeah.
And so it gives me really like this balance, because when we did live in Toronto and Vancouver and I was working in advertising and it was so go, I didn't even really notice because that's just your life, right? And then we moved back here and I'd known my husband all through, you know, we met in Toronto, we lived in Vancouver, we worked in advertising together, we met at work. And then we got here, maybe been here 2 weeks. And he said, I have never seen you like this content. And I said, I know, I just feel like, I think I've been exhausted for 20 years and I didn't know. And it just, coming back here, I always just feel grounded, like I can take a deep breath. I get to be so creative here because there's no distractions. I have a studio in my basement. You know, I can write, you know, with a view of the lake. And it's just, I get to recharge here, and then I get to go and do all these adventures in the world to promote all the stuff and whatever, but then I get to come home to my true home. So many of my friends have come back. Like all of my girlfriends from high school, all left and all came back. We were all pregnant the same summer. So Charlie just graduated with all of my best girlfriends' children. And, you know, we joke about, well, how can that even be? And we're like, well, it is what we planned in grade 2.
Right. Yeah, true.
They all had babies and we'd live next door. They'd all be friends, and it actually happened.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's such a magical place here. It pulls people back. Again, I don't know, is it the minerals in the clay?
Maybe.
Is there something about the Ogopogos that draws us back? I don't know, but like so many people go and come back.
So, okay, you've lived here for so long. Tell me, okay, Ogopogo, first of all, this is the mystical creature similar to the Loch Ness Monster that some people truly believe is in Lake Okanagan, swimming around in the depths that rarely gets seen. And if it does get seen, it's a very blurry photo that looks like waves or potentially someone with their hand doing this or something. Okay.
But
in all
be
reality,
careful when you're on an inner tube or a mattress because you don't know.
You don't know.
Maybe he's down there.
My son was in the lake the last night with a buddy of his. We were boating and they wanted to hang out on a little surfboard. And in the end, they were waving at us to be like, come pick us up, because they were scared of what was under the water potentially. I actually did not go in Lake Okanagan or swim around when I was a little kid because of the potential of this Ogoho. So my question is, do you or have you ever believed that it is a real thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Well, when I was little, I played softball quite seriously, and we would have to drive to Peachland all the time for gains.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is another town on the lake.
yeah, do you know why they did that? It was marketing propaganda to get people from the coast to come and live in the Okanagan Valley.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, come to Summerland. But look, Peachland, just down Route Lake.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we would drive, and the stretch on the highway between Summerland to Peachland is just all lake.
Okay.
And you're kind of above it, right?
Yeah.
So you see a lot of those currents
Yes.
that look like the Ogobogo.
Right.
And when you have the imagination of a 7 or 8-year-old,
Yeah.
you have seen it.
Especially when you've been pumped for years.
Yeah.
That there's this thing in the lake.
Well, it's on postcards. There's a sculpture in Kelowna of him, whatever. And so it's just like, and then you're in a minivan filled with other little girls going, Paradise.
Yeah.
So then you go to the beach the next day and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to dip my toes off the end of the pier because he's down there.
Yeah.
Then I worked for Tourism Summerland.
Okay.
That was one of my first high school summer jobs.
Okay.
And you get tourists asking you about it.
Right.
So you kind of got to double down. You got to
Sure.
keep the myth going.
Yeah.
Then I worked for Tourism Penticton the next summer.
Okay, by this time, have you been like, no, it's totally a myth? Or are you still been like, I don't know, it might be something in there?
I think that, well, you know what I think in this now? Should I ruin the magic?
I mean, I think a lot of that is out there if you're going where I'm going. What have you heard?
Sturgeon.
Yeah.
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 But you know what? I don't want a 40-foot sturgeon to hit my foot either.
Exactly.
Like,
It's true.
I don't even want a trout to bump my leg.
Yeah. No, I believe it. I mean, again, and sturgeon are like these prehistoric. They just said that there was one. I think it was 700 pounds, in the river.
Yeah, the Fraser
River.
Yeah.
And that it was like 120 years old.
Yeah.
And though these things have been around since before the First World War.
Yeah. How is that not the Ogobogo?
Right. Right. So okay. So do you find, like, maybe for yourself or for maybe the young aspiring artist, musician, whatever it is, being in Summerland, do you find that there is like less opportunity in a small town for that kind of thing than you would in a city, or like?
I mean, I don't think so. When I grew up here, I graduated in 1991. So I basically grew up here in the 80s.
Yeah.
It felt very, very removed from anything. Like the Coquihalla Highway had just been,
Right.
was it even done yet? We always took the Hope Princeton windy highway. So Indian to Vancouver was like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the internet and, it's so different that you can use a small town as your quiet place to create.
Okay. Yeah.
But then you hop on Instagram, you hop on anything, and you can be talking like I can be talking to a gallery in Paris right now.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I can only take my art to the Summerland Art Gallery or the Kelowna Art Gallery or something, or Vancouver. It's like I can be talking to somebody in Sydney, Australia, or Paris or whatever, and it doesn't matter, and they don't care, especially post-COVID.
Right.
Before COVID, they wanted you to fly everywhere or that you needed to be places in person. Now it's like, oh yeah, let's hop on a Zoom. Like I'm doing something during Art Miami week.
Okay.
We're just going to hop on a Zoom and figure out what we're doing.
Right.
And then, and then I'll show up in December when Art Miami happens. And before, you couldn't really do that, especially growing up here. I mean, that stuff just it was other people did that.
Yeah.
Famous people or rich people or whatever did that kind of thing. But now all of it exists online. So you can really live, I think, wherever you want.
Right.
Wherever especially as a creative person, be somewhere where your heart feels good and you can do the work you want. And for you, that might be a loft in Brooklyn. Like that's where, like your creative juices are flowing. But for me, it's a small town where I can move a little slower and then just be my best creative self.
Yeah. Is Summerland or small towns in general, do you feel like they hold on to something bigger cities are losing? Do you think that's true?
Well, again, like the way that I did big cities was I made them into small towns.
Yeah.
So a lot of like Toronto, for example, is a whole bunch of small towns all clumped together. So I lived on the Danforth, which was the Greek area.
Okay.
I didn't have to leave that area. Like there was my grocery store and my bank and restaurants and my little house. And, and I was scared when I first got there. So that is where I lived.
Yeah.
And I just made, I would only go to the same coffee shop. So I became a regular.
Okay.
And so they knew my name. And so, but that's me, because I need that safety of feeling like I belong somewhere. I think because here everyone did know your business, and everybody did know your name. Everybody knew my dad worked at the research station. Everybody knew my mom was an artist, and I liked that. And so I personally cultivate that in every city I live in. Even when I travel somewhere, like I'm lucky enough that I get to go to the Venice Biennale in Italy every second year for the art year, and I go for 2 weeks and I teach part of a course. Well, in that 2 weeks when I'm in Venice, they always get me a little apartment, and I just find my local. I find the closest guy, and there's 5 billion cafes to choose from, but I choose one.
Okay.
So that they get to know me.
Yeah.
So that by the end of my 2 weeks, they're like, Danielle, so I think you can seek it out wherever you want to, if that's what you want. But I needed it all the time, which is why I'm so happy to actually live here.
But that's brilliant advice for people that maybe are from a small town, that are going to go to a big city, whatever it is, for school or for whatever it is, to find that small town within the city. But like you said, those little things, that cafe, that's that same street that you walk, that neighborhood, that park.
Yeah.
Like that's really good advice, actually. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, that's cool. I think before we kind of end, I'm a little curious too, as far as the actual art that you personally do. Obviously, you've done the speaking, and you've curated these different shows, and you've been on, you've had the blogs, all these different things. What's the actual art that you create in your studio?
That's so funny, because that's the thing I'm like the most insecure about.
Okay.
I can be the Jealous Curator.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
Sure.
Being Danielle Krysa artist is more vulnerable.
Okay, sure.
Have you noticed? Yes, I have not talked about it.
I haven't talked about it at all yet, so I was like, this is a good question.
Like, oh damn, he's gonna call me that. So I do mixed media collage.
Okay.
And actually, before we started talking, I was looking around at all the stuff in here, and I was like, oh my god, I love that, because I am such a giant thrifter. So my work is sort of a mixed media. It's a lot of cut paper, but then I also add weird objects and things like that. So
so this is like, so full on, like, again, when I hear you say that, I'm thinking, okay, is this like a digital thing, or this is an actual physical, you're cutting the stuff out and then gluing and then mixing that with textures and different colors? And
yep, there's things glued on, there's things sewn on. So some of the work actually hangs on the wall.
Yeah.
I have freestanding sculptures that I do as well. Right now, I've just kind of hit a point, like I was saying about that show in Portland, then Nothing Soldier. So I kind of abandoned that. And I realized that I've been doing that a lot, is making something and then abandoning it. And making it. And so I did a big show at the Penticton Art Gallery, actually, a couple of years ago. And I loved that work. I had sculptures, all these glass jars that were filled with things, and then I did paper collages on the wall. And everything I do is very personal. And so that show was actually about having hysterectomy. Because I wanted to do it because I was having lots of problems.
yeah.
But then after I did it, I was super depressed, because the place where my baby grew got thrown in medical waste. And I was really down, and I thought, well, you know what? My superpower is that I'm an artist. So I can either sit here on the couch and be sad, or I can turn this story, just like I turned the jealousy into admiration, I can turn this story about my hysterectomy into something beautiful and positive. So the show is called Self-Preservation, and it was all about me reimagining what it was they took out of me as beautiful, like crystals, and everything was broken a little bit. It was like vintage jewelry that was broken, and ceramics that I buy at Value Village but then break. And then I put them all into jars, filled them with resin, so it kind of looked like formaldehyde.
Yeah.
And so it was like this self-preservation, as in I was re-preserving what I wanted to imagine was inside me, these beautiful, like, broken things, and beautiful. Broken isn't bad. And also mentally self-preservation, because I was so sad, and I was like, I need to take charge of this and do something really beautiful. But I abandoned that as well. And so now I'm working on a series where I've taken a moment because I've been busy writing the book. And that break from art has made me kind of realize like, wait a minute, there was this and there was this and there was this. So I'm trying to take all of my favorite bits from the last series of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm working on something that is super personal, that has lots of weird stuff that in art school I was told not to include, like pom-poms and
Okay.
humor and all this different stuff. And I'm just like, forget it. Like I'm putting it all in, and it's very unapologetic. I don't care. Nothing's selling anyway. I might as well do exactly what I want, and hopefully it'll resonate with the right people. And that's really what art is about, right? Is resonating and meaning something to somebody else.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really beautiful story. I'm curious when you say the word abandoning, because the story itself is very impactful. And if I was to hearing that now, I'm like, well, I would love to see that. And there's probably a lot, especially women, that would be like, that is such a beautiful way to take something that and turn it into something beautiful. And thinking of like those cracked vases and different things. And I've heard people say before, sometimes it's those cracks is where the light shines through. And that's when you're like, oh my goodness, there's such beauty and healing in that.
Yeah.
But like so taking all that and then thinking I've moved on, or what was the word? Abandon.
Yeah, well, I was talking to my husband about it the other day because I've been doing like a lot of thinking about this and trying to figure it out for myself. And I said to him, I feel like I abandoned it. And then as I'm saying it, I'm like, or did I was seeking to heal a wound. Did I heal it?
Right.
By doing that? I mean, it took me about 1.5 years, that full body of work. Maybe in that 1.5 years of making and taking it apart and putting it back together and reworking it, maybe I healed that wound. And so I'm not abandoning it. I've just healed it and I'm on to the next thing. And then the next series I did for Portland, it was called Undefeated. And it was these huge trophies, collages of trophies filled with all sorts of stuff. And it was meant as a way for me to out loud congratulate myself for being awesome, because I tend to beat myself up. We all do, like self-doubt and whatever. And somebody says, oh, that's amazing. And I don't know if it's being Canadian or a woman or a combo.
Yeah. You
go, oh, no.
Right.
And so Undefeated is about being like, yeah, I'm a badass and I own it and I should be getting a trophy that's, whatever. And so and it's covered in glitter and it's just like, I made these giant, like, those ribbons you get at like when you win a horse race.
Yes.
So I made those and they hang off of it. And I ironed on letters that say like, force of nature and whatever. And I loved them. and I haven't made one since.
Yeah.
And I think it's also partly because I celebrated myself.
Yeah.
I did it. I healed that thing that was bothering me.
Yeah.
And now I'm on to this next thing. Well, and it is interesting, like when I did the self-preservation, kind of like Jealous Curator, it was for me. And then I know the curator at the Printing Art Gallery, and he's like, why don't you show it here? Which is kind of nice because then it gives you a deadline or it gives you like purpose,
Right.
And so I was like, okay. But in my head, I'm thinking, it's so personal. Like it's such a personal, even saying hysterectomy, people are like, oh, let's not talk about it. So I did it. And then I did a little talk at the opening, and I had a lineup of women crying who had also had hysterectomies or like were waiting to have like fibroids removed or had this or couldn't have babies because they had all these things, and nobody talks about it.
Right.
Especially in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
It's like you're a failure or you're broken or you're whatever. But it was just so cool that a show that I thought was really just about me resonated with other people. I think when you make art, you have to be, it's so vulnerable, but you have to let all of that go. And as I get older, now I'm in my 50s, it gets easier and easier because you just get to the point where you're like, I don't care what other people think. And you have more stories to tell and you have more experiences. And so I'm putting all of that in my work, and the right audience will find it.
Sure.
I used to want to make art that everyone loved or write a book that everyone would love. And it's like, that doesn't exist. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to make the work that is means something to you in that moment, and the right people will find it.
Right.
And the people that it's not for, that's okay. There's lots of art and songs and books for them.
Yeah. So let's say and this may be the same for all artists, and maybe it's different. Okay, so let's say we talk about the 1,000 paintings and the one that's good. Okay, so what happens? What do most artists do with all the stuff that they don't want to show? Like again, I could just think of the amount of sculptures and paintings and all different types of art form that, what do people do something with that stuff in general?
Oh my gosh. Well, sometimes they give it away.
Okay.
I tried to sneak some of mine to the dump when my husband wasn't looking, and he was like, "What? We need it all for the retrospective." And I'm like, what retrospective? It's like, one day
Oh, wow.
the historians are going to come looking for this, and we need it all. So he tries to hoard it. I try and get rid of it when I can.
I mean, again, you think of some of the famous artists, of the things that they probably threw away today would be priceless.
Well, one of my favorite stories, I forget where I was talking, probably New York, because this guy said, we did a little Q&A at the end, and so this guy had said, "Oh, my dad actually worked for Andy Warhol back in the day."
Yeah.
And he said the number of prints that he pulled
Yeah.
that the world has never seen, because he wasn't happy with them.
Yeah.
And they go straight up to the dumpster, and then they would be incinerated. And if any intern or anybody took any, because I mean, of course, other people were like, "This is gorgeous. Like, what are you talking about?" If anyone took it, you'd be immediately fired. He said there was thousands of prints that were destroyed.
Wow.
But you don't think that. You just think, oh, Andy Warhol sat down and he did his soup cans, and he did, Marilyn, and he did that, and everything he did was genius. No, a whole bunch of it got set on fire.
Yeah.
So when I talk to students, I tell that story every single time, because it's so important for them to take that pressure off, that you're not going to sit down and make soup cans the first day out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Are you a Banksy fan? Are you part of like the lore, and like, who is it, and is it real, or is it a bunch of people working together, or is it a one guy? Like,
I do like to think about it. I like to imagine it's a woman.
yes.
Wouldn't that blow the art world's mind? It ended up being a woman.
When you were saying in the beginning, when you didn't want people to know, and they thought that you were some English man.
Yeah.
Imagine if all these years later, bang, here comes Danielle, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
like maybe that's Banksy.
I know, right?
That's pretty neat.
So I do like that. And actually, when I was in Venice one year, I was, the people that bring me there, they just put me up in an Airbnb apartment or whatever. So I'm always somewhere different. And while I slept one night, a Banksy went up
What?
on a wall, like right by, I just crossed my little bridge to go to my morning coffee in my usual spot. And there was a Banksy that had not been there the night before.
And you got to experience that
Yeah.
while you were there.
Yeah, it gives me chills even now. I was like, wait.
Shut up.
Because it was during the Biennale, right? So it was like a perfect time for he or she
Yeah.
to be there. And it was on the side of the wall with the canal. And so he would have had to be in a boat. And then it was all in the news that there was this new Banksy, and it was really literally, and I was like, oh, why didn't I get up and go for a midnight stroll? I would have seen it happening.
Yeah. And so it's always been something that's fascinated me, because I'm like, is it a community? Is it a one-off? Is it one person? Are they still alive?
Yeah.
Are they, like, all those different things? Do you have any thoughts on what you think, or is it just like, do you just love the mystery and just are happy to keep it that?
I'd be a little disappointed to find out.
Yeah.
It's like Santa Claus.
Yes.
It's never occurred to me that it's like a group of people. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've always just thought it was one dude in a hoodie.
Right. Yeah.
Did you watch Exit Through the Gift Shop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting, because the friend of Banksy's they were interviewing, I'm like, that's got to be Banksy.
I wonder.
But then everybody was like, no.
No, I don't think he would show his face. That's the
I know.
thing, like, that seems a little too close to getting caught.
I know, which is also why I think it might be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, yeah, put a man, but let's reinforce this and put a man in this documentary to make everybody go, ooh, what if that's him? Now we're really in the man camp.
Right.
Like, what if it's one of the Guerrilla Girls? You know about the Guerrilla Girls?
I don't.
The Guerrilla Girls started in the 80s, and it was all of these amazing female artists of the time who could not get shows because men got all the shows, whatever. And if you spoke out and said, hey, you'd be blacklisted.
Right.
So they couldn't do that. So this group of women, I think started with like 8 of them, they would wear gorilla masks
Okay.
and go and speak out about this stuff. And they started doing billboards and whatever. There's a really famous billboard of like an old painting of a naked woman reclining, but she's got a gorilla head on.
Okay.
And it said something like, you know, you have to be naked to get in. If you're a woman, you have to be naked to get into the Met. Because of all the artists in there, there was like 5% female artists, all males, but there was a ton of paintings of naked ladies.
Yep.
And so that was their whole thing in the 80s. And they're only revealed after they pass away.
Oh, really?
So then you find out, it's like, oh my God, she was one, you know, but they kept their
Cool.
Yeah. So I would love to write a book now revealing all of, like, asking them to take their masks off now, because I don't think we need it anymore. I think women can now say what they want to say. We're still not represented properly. We still aren't getting paid as much as male artists, but I don't feel like there's fear in saying, hey,
Yeah.
this isn't fair.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the 80s, they really had to protect themselves. It was like guerrilla style art, right? Which was like the double meaning of the guerrilla,
What is guerrilla style art?
where it's just, it is a bit Banksy-ish, where it just kind of happens
Sure.
without being involved with the museum or whatever. Yeah.
One of my favorite ones, I think it was the Banksy that was being sold in auction, and then after it got purchased, it went through the shredder
Yeah.
right in front of everyone.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
But did you know that it was worth more once it was shredded?
No, why?
Yeah. Because it was,
True Banksy.
yeah.
Interesting. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And did you know about the banana with the duct tape in Miami?
No.
A few years ago at Art Miami, some artist took a piece of silver duct tape and duct taped a real banana, to the wall. And this is, I'm getting the price wrong, but it's sold for like $5 million or something.
Because
I'm not really sure.
okay.
Yep. So things like that happen that are like stunts, or I think it was, and again, I shouldn't be even saying this out loud because I'm not sure I'm getting it right, but I think he was kind of making a job at the ridiculousness.
How much things can
Yeah.
potentially go for,
Right.
because someone deems it priceless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. But maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe he was trying to sell it for $5 million. But anyway.
But the weird thing about that is this: the last time I checked, bananas don't keep too well. So I'd be curious to see how that $5 million piece is hanging right.
I know.
Understandably, that's why you could have 10,000 podcasts specifically dedicated to the arts. I mean, there's so much history and emotion, and it just the way it moves people. Yeah. Honestly, thank you so much for sharing all those things. Again, my mind explodes a little bit with the amount of just what art brings to every aspect of life.
Yeah.
Before we go, I'm going to do the lightning round.
Okay.
Okay. So these are quick questions, kind of either or questions. You need to respond as quick as you can. The odd time, maybe you have to like preface something. Okay, this, but
Okay.
as quick as you can. We'll see how we go. All right. First question.
Okay.
High five or hug?
Hug.
Okay. Pollock or Picasso?
Neither.
Okay. Pop art or folk art?
Both.
Both. Aretha Franklin or Taylor Swift?
Aretha.
Okay. Bob Dylan or James Taylor?
Ooh, James Taylor.
Yep. Sriracha or Frank's?
Oh, Frank's.
Okay. Yep. Shoes or sandals?
Samples.
Rom-com or action?
Rom-com.
Jane Austen or Margaret Atwood?
Oh, Margaret Atwood.
Yeah. Okay. Nachos or wings?
Wings.
Graffiti or collage?
Collage.
Yes. Handsprings or moonwalk? If you had to go somewhere all the time, you had to get there by handsprings or moonwalk?
Moonwalk. Easy.
Okay. Can you do the moonwalk?
Yes.
Okay.
I cannot do a handspring. I would break my wrist and then ankle.
Okay.
I'd not be able to walk anywhere.
Yep. I can't do either, but
Yeah.
all right. Rodeo or rib fest?
Ooh. Rodeo.
Rodeo. Okay. Yep. Bagpipes or banjo?
Banjo.
Okay. Okay. We live in the Okanagan, fruit capital of whatever. Would you be a cherry or strawberry fan? Which others?
Cherry.
Cherry?
Mhm.
Okay. What about cherries or peaches?
Cherries.
Cherries or apples?
Cherries.
Is there anything above cherries in the Okanagan that you like?
Nectarines.
Nectarines.
We had an orchard beside our house, and it was my job when I was 14 to take care of the entire orchard.
Yep.
But this was the 80s, and it was very important to have a tan.
Mm-hmm.
So all my friends were at the beach getting a tan, and so I was in the orchard in a bikini with Hawaiian Tropic oil,
Yes.
covered in peach fuzz
Oh, that sounds awful.
and aphids, and I will never eat another peach.
Because of that.
Well, my dad was a food scientist, so he had a fruit dryer at home.
Mm-hmm.
We had peach leather, peach pie, peach chutney, peach
Cobbler.
everything.
Yeah. Peach everything.
Yeah, and then if you want, I'm sorry, tourism Okanagan, but if you want to bite into it, you got to get through the fuzz first.
Sure.
And then all the Hawaiian Tropic PTSD comes back.
Yeah.
But a nectarine
Right.
is like a naked peach.
Sure.
No fuzz,
No.
same taste,
Yep.
delicious. Why would you bother?
Well said. Okay. Are you a country or alternative person?
Oh,
Music.
I'm not really a music person. I do love a good country,
Okay.
but I love hip hop.
Okay. Yeah. Hip hop. What about, are you like a clap or cheer type of person?
Oh, cheer
Cheer. Okay.
with rhymes. Yeah,
With rhymes.
Mhm.
What about Julia Roberts or Jennifer Garner?
Julia Roberts.
Okay. What about sculpture or pottery?
Both together. Some of my favorite artists are sculptors who work in ceramics.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a sculpture of a pot?
Sure.
Okay. What about peanut butter? Smooth or crunchy?
Smooth.
Okay. Skydive or bungee jump?
Oh, God. I think maybe skydive. I don't trust those bungee jump people.
What about Batman or Superman?
I'm going to show my age and say old school Superman, Christopher Reeves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you're also talking about Michael Keaton as Batman or Val Kilmer.
Good point. I do love a Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah. So you're talking Michael Keaton or Reeves, and
I do have some early primal
yes.
love for the Christopher Reeves.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll stick with Christopher.
Yeah.
Catwoman or Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman.
Yes. Cashews or pistachios?
Pistachios?
Do you like fruit in salad? Yes or no?
Yes. Not peaches.
Not peaches. Definitely nectarines. Maybe a little bit of blueberry.
Yeah, a little blueberry, a little strawberry with a little goat cheese.
Goat cheese? Nah, I can't do goat cheese for some.
No?
I don't know. There's something funny about goat cheese. I always think it's feta cheese, and I like feta cheese.
And then you're surprised by the texture.
Yep. Sweet or sour?
Should we say sweet or salty?
Well, that's my next one.
Oh, okay. Between sweet and sour, sweet.
Okay. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Okay. Abstract expressionism or impressionism?
Impressionism.
Okay.
I've been to Monet's house 3 times in Giverny. Wow. Yeah, it was amazing. It's all preserved. You can go. It's like a museum.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Yep.
You get to walk through his house. You're not allowed to touch anything.
Yeah.
But when the security guard wasn't watching, you're in.
Touched everything.
Yeah. There's a door that goes out to the garden, and I thought he must have gone out this door a million times every morning. So I quickly touched the doorknob. I would have gotten in big trouble, but I did a quick whoop.
Hopefully they don't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Pass or shoot?
Shoot.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. Small town or city?
Small town.
Fantastic. Awesome. Danielle, thank you so much for being here, for sharing this amazing story with me. And yeah, for being a part of Summerland community, small town community, raising a family here. And again, blessing us with so much art and conversations like this. That's fantastic.
It was so fun.
As far as your books, like what's the next book called that you're coming out with?
The next book is called Real Artists Wear Black.
Okay.
And Other Lies About Being Creative.
Cool.
And it'll be out fall 26.
Fall 26.
Mhm.
And then any like other Instagrams, or where do people reach you? What's the best way?
The best way is Instagram, and my handle is just the Jealous Curator, all one word.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Well, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
thank you. I had so much fun.
Awesome.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Be sure to go and check out Danielle's work and come back for more episodes on Small Town Podcast.